Hello and welcome to this special preview edition of Why Blank Lost. I'm David Bloomberg, and it's hard to believe that it's been a year and 4 months since our last episode of New U.S. Survivor.
I know, right? It's kind of
Yes,
crazy
yes. Now
and
joining me,
exciting.
yes, joining me once again as we head into the new season is, of course, my co-host Jessica Lewis.
That's right. I am here and I am very happy to be discussing the new season because it has been so incredibly long. I thought we were just going to be watching reruns for the rest of our existence. So we don't have to do that anymore. Now we can watch the new stuff.
We still have plenty of reruns to watch, but
yes.
Yeah.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. Now, it may seem strange to have a preview podcast because normally that happens after you haven't seen us for a while, viewers, listeners. But we've been podcasting about Survivor through pretty much the whole gap, as Jessica just mentioned. We haven't even had time to touch on the seasons of Australian Survivor, South African Survivor, or Big Brother.
Or my family, or my job, or my house.
We've got to stick to the important things.
Been a whole lot of Survivor happening, which,
yes.
Listen, I love it. I'm not complaining. But that was definitely a marathon to get through so many seasons in such a short time frame.
Well, and we still have one more left, don't we?
I know. I am digging in.
Yes.
Digging in. I promise.
So, So we didn't do any of those other shows, but if you follow me on Twitter, then you've been getting my thoughts there. In case anyone hasn't been following along in our quote unquote off season, we've been discussing different prior seasons, basically since a little after Winners at War ended, starting parallel to the Wiggle Through Time series of episodes from different seasons, and then spending the last, 6 months or more talking about various winners in parallel to the overall RHAP rankings. That means even without U.S. Survivor on the air, we've probably watched more Survivor recently than we ever have, because for each one of those podcasts, we watched entire seasons. So for the longest off season in U.S. Survivor history, we didn't have much of an off season.
No, there was literally no off season. It was full of Survivor. It was very, very full.
Yes, and that means we're all prepped and ready, and we don't need a warm up. We're ready to jump into the new season.
Let's do this. Love it. And I will say that it's nice to have those rewatches going into this season, just because I think it will prepare my brain better in studying how they play, because obviously if we had gone over a year without any Survivor, I probably just would have been so excited about the prospect of seeing Survivor again that I would have forgotten that I have to watch it for a different purpose, not just entertainment. It's also educational for our listeners. So I'm happy that I didn't fall off there, and I'm ready to do this.
Yes. Now, for any newcomers to the podcast, you realize there's a Survivor season 41, and you're like, hey, let's listen to podcasts. This looks like a great one. You're right, first of all. But welcome. For those who have listened before, welcome back. To bring the new listeners up to speed, we will be here every week to discuss what each voted out player did right and wrong in terms of rules I originally wrote back after the first Survivor season and have been updating ever since. And we don't just rely on what you see in the episode. We dive into everything available that's not a spoiler, including interviews, secret scenes, basically anything we can get our hands on.
Yes.
Now, this concept started in a column on the Reality News Online website, which I created and ran for a long time, basically since, the beginning of Survivor, but which I had to close down a number of years ago. But the column was reborn as a podcast with Rob Sesternino and me in 2015 for Second Chances. And then we switched things up. I traded Rob for Jessica for the Heroes, Healers, and Hustlers seasons 4 years ago. 4 years ago. Can you
We've been doing this for 4 years.
Yes. So now, today we're going to talk about the Survivor 41 players and make some predictions, as you would expect for a preview show.
Mhm.
We will also address how we think they will do overall with various rules that will come up. And we'll also discuss a few tweaks to the rules as well, because as I mentioned, I change them as time goes on.
And they're like 36 pages.
Don't scare people off.
I'm just, if they want to study, this is
Yes,
definitely,
that's
there's
true.
a lot of meat here. It's not
There
just
is.
what you see on, the poster back here. That's
Yeah.
the pared down version. There's a whole lot there, but all incredibly great tips for anyone who's considering playing, or if you just want to know how the game should be played while you're watching it. It is something great to delve into and read, but I'm just letting them know that it's substantial.
It is, and that's the shortened version. When I converted it from the website version to the podcast version, I shortened it. So,
well,
just keep that in mind.
All right.
Anyone who would like to refamiliarize themselves with the version before I update them. So I have updated them. We just haven't gotten them posted to the website yet. You can still check it out at robhasawebsite.com/blog/survivor rules. Don't know yet what the link will be. Don't know if we'll just take the new version and kind of put it in the same link, or we'll have a new version. I'm sure by next week we'll have that ironed out. But in any case, Jessica already mentioned the shorter and much more colorful version, which is poster form.
Poster form.
And you can get that at tinyurl.com/davidrulesposter2.
That's right.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know the history, because we used to always explain the history of the poster, and it's been a long time, but since this is a preview podcast, we may have new listeners. Jessica, do you want to explain, like, what is the poster?
Absolutely. So I needed to get you a present because you deserved it. And I thought, what better thing to do for him than to take his rules and put them into poster form and utilize the skills of one very talented survivor when it comes to drawing. And that would be Eric Reichenbach.
Yes.
And he was loving the idea, thought it was great. He and I went back and forth with various ideas. You had no idea that this was happening. And it was such a great process to work with Eric because I really was blown away. When I approached him with this idea, I had no idea that he would create something so beautiful and so impressive. And it really was just awe-inspiring when I saw it. So I couldn't wait to send it to you. So you have the one and only large poster size. Yes. And then we got them reprinted so people can order them and they can have a copy as well. But it has been great to share with people. Everyone who's purchased it is really happy with the purchase. I get a lot of feedback on eBay and in my Twitter, and that people just love it. So it's great to hear, and I'm so happy that it worked out the way that it did. And yeah, so that was where that came from.
Yeah. So again, people can order it at tinyurl.com/davidrulesposter2, which will take you to an eBay page. If you're international, you can DM Jessica because eBay won't deal with you.
That's right.
Sorry.
And I will certainly send it to wherever you reside. Right. We'll work out the details.
Now, in addition to the poster, we also have another way to get the rules so you can always have them with you, and that is t-shirt form. And so
I have my own version.
Yes. Go to the robhasawebsite.com or robhasapodcast.com. Click the merch link near the top. That'll take you to the RHAP shop where there's lots of great stuff. You can scroll through, find that design, look it up on t-shirt, look it up on sweatshirt, whatever. But there's also two designs because Jessica's wearing one and I'm wearing the other.
Look at that.
That is a design that the graphic designer for RHAP came up with. And it's the checklist design. And you can also get it on the mug.
All over the place.
Blank 1 on the back.
So many good things. And you can also get this design on a mug too. We should mention that as well.
So, again, that's the merch link at the robhasawebsite.com. Now, speaking of the rules and the poster and all of that, the new version, what season 41 survivors should have learned, has a few changes that were somewhat inspired by the poster. First, I want to talk about the name because until now, I have always used the location, the theme, whatever. So it would have been, for your season, it would have been what millennials and Gen X survivors should have learned.
Right.
As an example. But, Jeff kind of left me hanging here. It's just season
41.
41. Now, maybe I should have named it what Survivor 41 players should have learned, but it just threw me.
Listen, here's the thing. I can't wait for the actual players to find out there's no theme.
Yeah.
When Jeff always makes it kind of a big deal when they walk in or wherever they are when they meet Jeff, and he explains what the theme is and people get all excited and cannons go off and birds fly across the sky. I mean, it's always like a big thing. And now it's just going to be, you are season 41. Yes. I can't wait to see what they say.
Especially since, some of the people interviewed already had ideas for what it was.
Yeah, they're all guessing. And some of it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so that made me giggle watching those because we have the inside skinny. They obviously know now, but at the time they had no idea.
Right. So, as I was saying, there are a few changes that were inspired by the poster. Now, it's always been implied somewhat that rule number 7, that's, right there. Hey, who's that?
I don't know who that is.
Covered more than just idols and advantages, and we've talked about other subjects when we've gotten there. And the poster solidified that by, putting Jessica at her rock draw.
Listen, I had to be on the poster, right?
Yeah,
it only made sense.
And now I've added in rules specifically covering rock draws, plus other game mechanics like Final Four fire making, stepping down from challenges for food.
Right.
Plus a discussion of figuring out what to do if you suspect somebody else has an idol.
And I will say this, just to add, as far as my rock draw being on the poster, it wasn't just because I wanted to be on the poster. I mean, obviously I wanted to be on the poster, but a crazy thing that I can share with anyone who's ever desirous of being on the show, and if you are chosen.
I thought you were going to say desiring to be on the poster.
No, the show. When you are actually going through your contract, which is very, very, very lengthy, there is an entire section discussing how a rock draw works. So it is something that you need to understand. So they are very clear on how specific rules and parts of the game will play out in the game. And so I just remember reading that at my dining room table and actually reading it to my husband. So I don't know, maybe I knew something crazy was going to happen, but so it is something that you do have to be aware of these rules because they really are something you are agreeing to before you even go out there to play.
Yeah, my rules are more important than those rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we won't go over every change as when you see them, they will be highlighted in the rules themselves for everyone who wants to look, but we should at least talk about the Rule 7 additions. For rock draws, I added in a discussion of when it makes sense to do it, when it doesn't. 2 examples of when it may be necessary can be found in Jessica, and one forced by Sierra in Blood versus Water. Now, we've discussed at length in previous podcasts, especially the Why Adam Won podcast, where we had Adam as a guest. Jessica absolutely needed to go through with that rock draw or kill her whole game. So in that situation, a player obviously needs to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and
it didn't work out on my end.
Go back to that recent the Why Adam Won kind of redux fairly recently, and you can listen to that. We also discussed in Why Tyson Won, the more again over the off season, that both Sierra and Tyson made the right move from opposite sides in drawing rocks. Tyson had a small chance of winning if he didn't do it, and Sierra had basically 0 chance of winning if she didn't do it. So it had to happen.
Right.
But both of these situations were fairly late game, and they were specific circumstances. And, we've seen other circumstances, such as one that stands out in international version, where someone forced a rock draw very early in the game when it just wasn't necessary, and it was kind of silly.
Silly people.
Now, another game mechanic that players are forced to deal with, thanks to Jeff Probst, is Final Four fire making. We all know it sucks. But
it's a little asterisk in the rules next to that.
But if you get that far, you just have to deal with it. You can't just say, no, Jeff, that sucks. I refuse to participate.
Yeah.
So you'd better be prepared. First of all, you should make sure you know how to make fire and practice before ever going to Fiji. Then, when you get there, you should also practice because the conditions in Fiji are different from the conditions at your house.
Mm-hmm. And the materials are different.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, you should absolutely practice. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, at least as important is the strategy involved if you win the Final Four immunity challenge. Should you throw yourself into fire making? Should you stay safe? Generally, I would say it's stupid to give away immunity. But there are unfortunately some situations where this has made it necessary. We saw Chris Underwood do it because he was literally told by the jury that he absolutely needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hopefully that will never happen again. But Natalie didn't do it at Winners at War, and some jurors criticized her for it. Now, those jurors were wrong, but the problem is that they are also the people who will be judging who gets to win. And sometimes jurors just have stupid ideas. So, like so much else in the game, you just have to know when they have a stupid idea and you have to go with it. So basically, just have a good read. So try to figure out what people think while they're still in the game, so you know what they may be thinking once they get to the jury, because you're not going to be like Chris Underwood and have the opportunity to talk to them at that point.
Right.
But, of course, you just need to know where you stand compared to the others left in the game. Maybe you have a situation where there's one player who's obviously going to win if they make it to the end, and the other two players in the game have no chance of knocking them out.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, it may be the right move to throw yourself at fire making. Maybe you can knock them out. If you can, you win. If you can't, well, you weren't going to win the game anyway.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to consider for sure.
Right. Now, another game mechanic that comes up frequently and may come up more with Jeff Probst wanting to force tough decisions is the temptation of either not participating in or stepping down from an immunity challenge for food. Sometimes it's the greatest thing ever if you are absolutely 100% certain your place in the game is solid. But other times, it's just not a chance you should take.
Mm-hmm.
A perfect example that came full circle was Kim in One World and Kim in Winners at War. In her first season, Jay dropped out of a challenge for food, and Kim organized the vote to get rid of him. Kim herself stepped down too, but she was, pretty well controlling the game. There's a reason that she's sitting
That's
right
there. Mm-hmm.
He thought he was in a solid alliance, but he clearly wasn't. All right. Fast forward to Winners at War, when Kim stepped out of the same challenge for peanut butter and cookies. And she especially should have known better, because she was the one who assured Jay in her old season that he had nothing crazy to worry about.
Right.
And what happened? Bye-bye, Kim.
Yeah.
Now, with all this said, there is one exception. If you're about to fall out of a challenge anyway, and Jeff offers food, then you might as well take it. Just don't convince yourself you're about to fall out if you're really not. Some people may be like, oh, well, maybe I am getting ready to fall because that food looks really good. No, it's only literally if you're about to die up there.
I love it.
So, all right. Many of the other changes to the rules were additions of examples, some of which came from Winners at War, others that came from the rewatches we did. I was like, oh, certainly that's in the rules. Oh, whoops, I took that out. No, that needs to be in there. The main one that I want to mention, the main addition, is Rule 4, and talks about how Tony was a great example of keeping his emotions separate from the game. Tony said in one post-game interview that we never saw him mad. Because how can he be mad when he's playing a game? And he added in another that a lot of people can't separate the emotional element from the game, but he had no problem doing that. As part of it being just a game, Tony also told Mike Bloom that people just believe in me because I was real at the moment I'm talking to them. My feelings are real, so people have to believe me because it's so genuine when I'm talking to them. But 10 minutes later, if I'm back into game mode, I don't care what I just did to you. If you have to go, you have to go. Now, it's not to say Tony has no feelings. And Ben even said in his Jury Speaks video that it emotionally hurt Tony to vote out people he got close with. And that Tony cried a lot in that season and didn't like to hurt people. And it's fine to have emotions. But as Tony said when voting out Jeremy, I have to put my emotions aside and play this game.
Right. Yeah.
So those are the main changes to the rules. With all of this said, it's time to get to the new players.
Time to get to the new players. Very exciting. And there will be a lot of paper flipping. I just want you to know there's a lot of paper here.
All right. So we will start with I think it's the Love You tribe, but every time I see it, I just want to pronounce it the Love You tribe.
Love you, tribe.
And I'm sure they called themselves that.
They had to have, because that's just too funny. I love that.
I mean, we've heard before people talk about the Love tribe. This
right.
is the Love You
Love
tribe.
You tribe. That's amazing. I love it. All right.
So we will be going, everybody, in alphabetical order by first name as we go through the tribes, in case you're following along at home. And we'll start with Danny McCrae. He's a 33-year-old ex-NFL player from Frisco, Texas. And, he even played for the Bears for a year. Now, being a Bears fan, that means there's a joke in there somewhere about being used to losing. But, one thing that worries me about Danny is his listed pet peeves include lying, lack of accountability, lack of awareness and consideration for people's time and space, and having to repeat himself after 3 times. Literally every single one of those things are going to come up this season.
Yeah. But he's also very competitive, which will also come up during the season, right? Yes. So maybe there'll be some balancing that will be happening there.
Yes. Now, something that worries me even more is he plans to play like Ben Driebergen.
Well, I think that I know that Ben has gotten a lot of guff, from his season. But I think if there was one thing that Ben did, Ben played with a lot of heart and didn't want to lose. And so he pushed himself as hard as he could to not lose. Now, he had nothing to do with fire making being added. I mean, that was CBS and not him. So I think Ben is a great Survivor player. I know that some people are upset by how he won, but I think the person he was while he was playing, I could see that fitting into the way that Danny describes himself.
I mean, I like Ben. I will not say he's a great Survivor player. He was great at finding idols.
Well, he was, but that is part of the rules, right?
It is. You
have to understand idols.
Yes. But what Danny says is Ben was able to outwork everyone to do what he needed to survive. That's not quite the way it worked, Danny. He was a huge threat, and then he found idols. Now outworking, yes, I guess he outworked them to find the idols.
Mm-hmm.
Danny did say he wants to redefine what a threat is and say it's not the strong players, but the smart ones. Well, you and I know from our recent rewatches, this is the same argument James made multiple times in his seasons, and it never worked for him. Of course, the guys who are absolutely huge and muscly are going to say, no, it's not me. It's not me. It's those smart people. Now, here's the thing. They're generally right. But still, he also said he wants to hit the beach and find an idol. But again, that's a good idea. He is way too focused on idols. Just way. You should be hitting the beach and either making strategic bonds or social bonds.
Right.
Not scavenger hunt the minute I get there.
Well, yes. And I don't disagree with that. But I also do think that if you're someone who is more new to the game of Survivor, and I'm trying to remember if he mentioned when he started watching, but if you're idolizing someone like Ben, that's a different type of
nice pun, idolizing,
right? Like that. That's a different type of Survivor player. And I think that he might have gotten caught up in that the showiness of it, and look what you can do with an idol, and you can really control your own fate with an idol. But Ben got to the end because Ben had to do other things along the way as well. He did find a lot of idols, but there are so many other components to it. So for Danny, he's probably looking at Ben going, well, look at what Ben was able to do with idols. And there's other players who have done the same thing, who have managed to save themselves because of an idol play. So finding an idol, great, but you can't make that your whole game.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Ben, and we've talked about Ben's game before. Ben played a pretty good game up to the point where he became a threat and his tribe wanted to get rid of him. And that's when he went into idol mode. Danny is talking about going into idol mode the minute he gets there.
Right. Yeah.
You're not going to win that way.
Right.
So, I mean, he may end up, if he doesn't get tagged as immediate idol hunter, then he may make it close to the merge, but none of this bodes well for him in the long run.
Well, I mean, my biggest concern for him is the fact that he's an ex-NFL player. And I know he said he wasn't going to tell anyone that he was an ex-NFL player. I don't know if people would recognize him or not, but we've seen this in years past when they've had former NFL players, they've had baseball players, they've had people who have been in the profession making a lot of money doing what they do. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way when they're trying to decide who should actually be sitting there at the end. And they don't want to give $1 million to someone who's already been paid multiple millions of dollars to do what it is they've been doing for a living.
Yeah. Now, I suspect that will never come up because I don't think he'll make it anywhere near there. I also suspect nobody will recognize him. I mean, that's you'd have to be a pretty damn dedicated Dallas fan to recognize him.
Quite possible.
So, all right.
We are now going to move on to Desean Rodden. Right? Did I say that correctly?
Sure.
So he is a 25-year-old medical student, and he was actually cast way back at the beginning of 2020. And then I love the way he explained it. They basically took his lunch money away and were like, now you have to wait. So, this poor guy was sitting around forever. He was that Survivor that we all thought about at the time when we were like, oh, they're not going to have Survivor. He was that person who got the call and was like, yes, you're going to be on the show. And then, no, you're not, because the whole world's going to shut down. So good for him that he's coming back. He feels elated to be here, and I can see why after waiting so long. So he plans to use his social charm. And granted, when I watched videos of this guy, I was very impressed with how he just came across on the screen. He seems incredibly likable. But then behind the scenes, he's going to be very sneaky and devious and really wants to do things behind people's back and also in confessionals. So we'll see how that all plays out. I'm definitely getting Davey vibes from him. And I know that Mike Bloom said the same thing. I'm not stealing that from you, Mike. That was an immediate thing when I started reading about him. And
one thing I will say, just because as I was going through, I made all my notes from what we had, and then I listened to those podcasts. I held off on them, and it was like Mike and Rob. It's like, damn it, stop saying what I already have in my notes.
I know, right? I was listening to, and I was like, he really, that is absolutely 100% true. So I do think that a lot of the things about Desean are very interesting. He describes himself as charming, devious, and resilient. So I think those are great ways to describe yourself. His pet peeve is being told what to do. So I do hope that he can find some common ground while he's out there and that no one really takes charge and upsets him. But I think overall, I think he has a really great opportunity to excel at the social component of the game because he just seems to be a likable person. He understands how he is likable. And I think he's going to have the ability to really connect with people out there. And if he doesn't like to be told what to do, I have a sneaking suspicion he's probably not going to be telling people what to do either. So I think he's going to find that balance as well. Yeah. So I'm excited for him. He was definitely one that I was very enjoying watching him in his interviews and listening to him.
Yeah. It's interesting because both of our players from the medical field this season have a lot of similarities. They're going to be charming to their face, but talk about them in confessionals and be seen as the villain by the audience. It's like, what, two different doctors who are, the same way. And we'll get to the other doctors, later. But yeah, it's just interesting that they both came up that way.
I think, though, he seems to come across more genuine. So I think he's probably going to have more of an ability to pull off that devious component, because he doesn't read that way at all. When he's speaking, he just seems very charming and charismatic. So I think he might be in a better place to do something like that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about you. I don't know exactly how far he'll get, but I'm going to say he'll make the jury.
Oh, I think he's going to get far. Yeah,
Okay.
He's up there for me. I think that he's definitely going to be able to charm some people for sure.
Okay.
And I have to see remember who he's out there with. Yeah, maybe he and I think he's going to do well. Okay. I like him.
All right. Well, the next up is Erica. Whew, I did not try to pronounce that last name in my mind. We'll just go with Erica because I don't want to mangle it. Yeah.
There's only one Erica.
Yes. She's a 31-year-old communications manager from Toronto and Ontario. Now, by the way, sometimes there are slight differences in their years because I think some of the sources of information gave their age at the time and some give their age now.
Yes.
So like you had, you had the previous contestant listed as a 25-year-old. I am listed as a 26-year-old. So just in case anyone's, really keeping track of the math.
Oh, you know what? That is true. Cause
yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. So anyway, the first thing that may, to, pardon the pun, stand out about Erica is that she only stands 5 feet tall. And so she said she's hoping to be underestimated because of her appearance, but I worry it could hurt her in just a 6-person tribe early on. A lot of people talked about, this is something that will come up again and again. I'm hoping to be underestimated on this. I'm hoping to be underestimated on that.
Right.
You don't want to be underestimated at the beginning of the game.
Right.
Because if you're underestimated, it could be goodbye.
Yeah. And these are small tribes.
Right. So she will need to quickly prove her worth and or make alliances to keep her safe and point the target elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, she says she's fearless, so maybe that means she's going to just really get out there and give it a go. But I do worry as well that she's going to have a hard time getting past that. But maybe it'll work to her advantage. I mean, who knows? It depends on the challenges. It depends what they're doing. And if she's really able to hold her own, then it won't matter at all.
Right. Now, she said, I'm hoping that when I come in and become friends with everyone, people will think that I'm an easy ally. And that's exactly where I want to be. I want to be seen as an ally, someone people can work with, but not someone they see as a threat. I think that's I think that that's my best bet of being able to navigate undercover. And now we've just recently watched 2 seasons of Sandra winning. It immediately strikes me that she's talking about playing Sandra's game. Spoiler for tomorrow. But if she added, I will say yes to anybody who wants to work with me. If you want to be my friend, if you want to be in an alliance, if you want to tell me anything, I am down. So not only is that Sandra's game, but it's the Ghostbusters provision of the first rule.
Always say yes.
Oh, yes. Now, I do think Erica also showed some game wisdom in noting that you need to combine the social game and strategy because, quote, you're only going to be able to get that key information to build your strategy through building those social relationships. I don't think that it serves someone well just to see everyone else as a chess piece. At the same time, you can't just rely on friendships carrying you through. You have to figure out the marriage of the two of them.
Marriage.
She added that she thinks she can do that and get to the end. And I think if she can make it to the merge, she has a damn good chance of following through on that. I think she understands the way the interplay between those two parts of the game. But I do worry that she'll be voted out pre-merge for tribal strength.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, in looking at all of these tribes and trying to make some determinations, we know that the game is going to be moving like this, right? So things are going to be moving very quickly. And I think if you show your strength early on, I think that's obviously going to bode well. People are going to be looking for quick and easy reasons to vote people out.
Yes.
And if she proves to be strong, then I think she's going to be fine. I mean, there's nothing about her that strikes me as being a concern. She's clearly concerned about her height. So my fear for her would be that she highlights it too much as opposed to just being there, because there are some other tiny people, not on her tribe, but also within the cast. I think another one said they were like 5'2", and they were worried about that potentially being an issue as well, that they were just smaller in stature. But again, if you're strong, it doesn't matter. And so, you know, I do think that if she doesn't make it a big deal, it might be something that nobody even really notices, because when you look at the picture of them all, I mean, it doesn't stand out. It's not too shocking or anything. So I think she, you know, if she's able to just kind of move forward and prove her worth, yeah, she's probably going to make it at least to the merge. Yeah.
And if she makes it to the merge, I think she makes it significantly further.
All right. Our next Survivor contestant is Heather Aldrete, and she is a 52-year-old stay-at-home mom. She was in a roller derby, which I find fascinating. She describes herself as authentic, passionate, and devoted. And I think there was at least 3 of them that used the term authentic, which I thought was really interesting, that was something a lot of people were going with. She says she cusses like a drunken sunburnt sailor, and that her dad.
Let me just say, by the way, sounds like my kind of person.
I appreciated that a lot when I heard that.
A little inside baseball here. Before we started recording, Jessica and I were actually talking about the times that we had, and we weren't even talking about Heather. It was just pure coincidence, talking about, you know, swearing at work and things like that.
Yeah,
so
bit of a potty mouth sometimes. So.
Yeah. And
so I appreciate that about her. And she also says her dad's name is Bubba. So she knows how to do some stuff. She was talking about crabbing, building things. She flipped houses for a while and basically did everything except, I think, the roof.
That takes a lot of muscles to flip a house.
So she'll be great out there building an actual like structure to live in. But yeah, so I think overall, was there anything real? I mean, I think for me, the concern I have is that she is truly worried that they're going to think she's a little nutty, but that's because she is a little nutty. And so people that present in that fashion always make me a little bit nervous. Like, you recognize a certain component of yourself and you're like, well, geez, I hope they don't think that about me, but that's what I really am. So how are you going to put that part of you away if that's the way you even know that you are? So I read that and I was a little bit worried for her in that regard. And I'm also a little bit worried for her just because of her age.
Yes.
And
I mean,
that is a concern.
Yeah. I mean, she's my age. She's basically almost the exact same age I am. And, you know, there are a few others that are around that same age group. And, you know, since she's the first one, I just want to mention, you know, I do really like the fact that there's a wide range of ages.
Love
this
it.
season.
Love it.
It's not the oldest cast ever on average, even the oldest new player cast, but it has a lot of older players to go along with a lot of younger ones. So there's a large span there. But being 52 on a 6-person tribe filled with players 20 years younger than her, a couple of whom are literally half her age, is not going to be easy.
Well, and here's my theory too. I think that because this is only a 26-day season, that we've already been forewarned that things are going to move very, very quickly. So you have 18 people that you need to get off in 26 days. I think that there's going to be an immunity challenge on day 1.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, and so because of that, people are not going to have enough time to really learn anything about who they're playing with. I think they're going to be getting off boats or however they're getting there, and they're immediately going to be thrust into the game, and they're going to have to figure out who they're voting out. And and normally when you've got time to learn about people, you still look for one particular reason. Like, why should we vote this person out? It's only been 3 days. Like, what do we know about them? I think they're going to have like a day to really learn about someone, even though they've been seeing each other for at least 2 weeks at this point, but not communicating. So they have seen her. And I know at one point in one of the interviews, and I can't remember who said it, but someone specifically referenced an older woman and she was acting a little bit spastic when they were watching. So I don't know if it was her or not, but clearly they've been watching each other. And so they're already making decisions, preconceived notions, things of that nature. And then if you have to pick someone in that quick of a turnaround, you have to pick one reason because you're not going to know that much. And if they see her as the older individual, that might be enough. And then she won't have an opportunity to prove her worth and her building skills and the strength that she will bring. Clearly, if she was in a roller derby, she's a strong individual. Maybe she'll compete really, really great, and we don't even need to worry about that. But that's the concern that I could see for her.
Yeah. I mean, going all the way back to the first season, it took one misstep in the first challenge for Sonia to be just like, I mean, she was already the oldest contestant. She misstepped. They lost the challenge, and they were like, well, we got to get rid of her. Now, I do like the polls for which survivor she'd play most like, with the kindness of Lisa Welchel, but the savviness of Chrissy Hofbeck. And even more than that, I'm happy that she said she may not like everyone, but she has the ability to convince them that she does, or as we would say, pretend to be nice.
Right. Absolutely.
She also wants to align with someone who is rational, which is good because it's a lot easier to predict what a rational person will do.
Right.
Even if you don't agree with them, you know which way they're going to think.
Yeah.
What might not be good, and this relates to what you were talking about, is she wants to settle in when she arrives and figure it out. And that sounds fine, but if you lose the first challenge, you don't have time to settle in and figure it out because she is the easy target.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and so, if she does stick around, I think she has the right idea about using her social game to move along strategically. I just worry about her making it that far. And so, that's where I am.
Yeah.
All right. So we can move on to Nasir. How do I get the last names I can't pronounce?
Listen, this is the way it worked out.
I'm going to go with Mutalif.
Uh-huh.
And I apologize, Nasir, if I just destroyed that. He is a 36-year-old sales manager from Morgan Hill, California, but he grew up living in a mud hut with no electricity or running water for half his life. So he's pretty much truly lived that part of Survivor. This is going to be nothing for him.
Right.
He worked his way out of poverty. I think he'll be willing to work hard here as well. His pet peeve of laziness and people who don't contribute to group efforts, it might cause a problem, or it may bond him with others in the tribe who feel the same way.
Yeah. And his mom is his hero. So anyone whose mother is their hero is my hero. I love that about him. That's great.
Now, Nasir is one of the people who wants to arrive and build the shelter and go with the flow rather than having a plan to enact some specific strategy. Again, if he finds people of similar mindset when it comes to doing that, then he may be okay. And, of course, flexibility is important. But so is forming early alliances, especially in a 6-person tribe. So I do worry a little that he, about him in that regard.
Yeah, because he did say, though, with being on Survivor, if you don't have a game plan, like you have to have a game plan when you come into Survivor. But then it sounded like he didn't really have one necessarily. It's kind of, I feel like he is someone who could excel incredibly well in certain components of this game because clearly the elements are not going to bother him. And that's a huge thing to know going into a game like this, because no matter how strong you think you are, until you've actually lived it and actually had to survive, you might not actually know what you're getting yourself into. And some people's bodies acclimate better to that shift and that change. And if he's already handled a lot of that, then great. The elements won't be an issue for him. But what might be an issue is just that actually understanding the nature of this. I mean, he seems to say you've got to have both strategy and social game, and it's a combination of both, which is wonderful. But will he enact it well enough to carry him through the game? I think there might be a little bit of being naive when it comes to this game, because I think he's someone who has focused so much on his backstory and how much that has prepared him that he might not understand how he needs to actually play the game, in addition to having that backstory and building that ability for himself to thrive in that atmosphere. I mean, clearly he has gone through a world of things and come out on top. So maybe he'll do the same thing on Survivor.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I'm a little worried about is that he might not be able to express himself quite the way he intends to in high pressure situations. Because he mentioned, and he specifically mentioned this, that he thinks in Tamil, the language, and then translates in his mind to English.
Yes.
And we've seen misunderstandings pop up from similar situations before, like Abby Maria.
Yeah.
That was one thing, was that there was a language differential there. And so as smart as he is, as experienced as he is, he still has to translate that, which could cause problems. Very well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say, you may know better than anyone, because you voted out Paul because Paul made a slip of the tongue.
Yeah.
Whether he intended to say it the way he did or not, Paul said, if it comes down to, a men's alliance, I'll just say, okay, good luck, ladies.
Right.
Now, I still don't know to this day if that's literally what he meant, but it is literally what he said.
Twice.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when I first watched it, the very first time I watched it, I was like, oh, Jessica's overreacting here. But after I watched it again and knew it, I was like, no, Jessica's not overreacting. He had a slip of the tongue. And that's something, and that's, a native English speaker. You can do that. The season that we're going to talk about tomorrow, heroes versus villains. At one scene, Danielle is so upset that she reveals in tribal council that she's super close to Parvati.
Yeah.
And Russell's like, didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, it's easy for anyone to do it. I think it's just a little bit easier for someone who's translating in their mind into a different language.
Oh, for sure. Because there are, and clearly he's a businessman. So he's thrust into this world and has existed in this world, but he's learned English by watching Survivor. And so, he's a self-taught when it comes to the language. And so there might still be a barrier there. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm hoping that it's not, but it's certainly a legitimate concern.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think his own engaging personality will be a positive, and it will probably overcome that. But I also wish, like you said, he had more of a strategic plan.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Our next Survivor contestant is Sydney Siegel. She is 26 years old and describes herself as a little wild. She's confident, candid, sexy individual. Her words, not mine. And her parents have nursed her ego from the time that she was born.
Huh.
Yeah. So she describes herself as also charismatic, but empathetic. She enjoys running, knitting, crocheting, and soccer. So she is, one of the things she talks a lot about is her physical abilities, that she is very strong. She's naturally gifted when it comes to things like that. I'm pretty sure she went to school on a scholarship. At least that was something she talked about, that she was sought after by the college that she attended originally. Now she's a law student, if I didn't mention that already. And she says that she is so dynamic, she can go anywhere. And she has done that since she has traveled to about 42 countries. And she said that she did so all by herself without anything but a backpack and her daddy's credit card.
Yeah.
So
I like that. Totally by myself. Nothing at all to support. Right. My dad's credit card. Okay.
But I was going through her information, and I gotta say, props to her for being so damn confident in herself and like really just kind of owning who she is. But at the same time, being so blissfully unaware that, I'm sorry, that is not, traveling the world with your father's credit card doesn't mean that you're going without anything. That means you're going with however much his balance is, that's what you're traveling with. I mean, so like, it's just, to me, there seems to be a disconnect that, she doesn't want people to know that I think she's from Beverly Hills, and she doesn't want to tell them that because she's afraid that that's going to come with some preconceived ideas about how she is. But if she's presenting herself in the way that I anticipate she's going to, it's not going to matter where she says she's from, because it's going to be very clear that she comes from a good place as far as being well taken care of and being kind of nurtured in a way that some people might not have been nurtured, like Nasir that we just talked about, right? Like he's not someone that was provided for in the same manner that she's been provided for. So I'm worried. I'm worried for our Sydney that she might end up coming across as too much too soon, and they got to make a quick decision about who they want to get rid of. So I'm very, very fearful for Sydney. She seems to have an understanding of Survivor, which is great, because she's definitely someone who loves Survivor, as I think most of them seem to. Like, they all seem to have a really great love for Survivor. Russell Hantz is her favorite Survivor player, and we've been watching him play very recently. But she's another one who says she's hoping that she's not perceived as annoying, but honestly, I don't care. So this is what I'm concerned with her, that there's this desire to be like herself, and she wants to be fully herself and doesn't want to have to hide who she is. But she recognizes that who she is could potentially be a problem, but then again, she doesn't care. So it's this, there's too many things happening where there's no balance. And I'm fearful that she is not going to fit in very well.
Yeah. I look at it. I looked at what she was saying from more of a strategic standpoint, because everything you said is right. But she also said she believes that alliances and loyalty are fleeting in Survivor, which is good to remember when you're looking at other people, but you still want everyone else to think it's long-term. Right. But she said, I'm not pro-alliance. I'm not anti-alliance. I think I'm just going to feel it out, because it is a lot about voting blocks and trust clusters. Now, people probably know my thought about referring to voting blocks and trust clusters, as if they're somehow different from alliances, because they aren't.
Right.
And not being pro-alliance is not being pro staying in the game of Survivor.
Yeah.
You can't take a neutral stance. There are a lot of issues in the world today where if you're not pro, you're essentially anti. The same is true. The same is true on Survivor. Yeah. If you're not pro-alliance, then you're anti-alliance.
Yeah.
Now, she also said, my first order of business is just building relationships. I don't even want to bring up strategy at the very beginning. I want to be like, I'm Sydney. Here's where I'm from. Tell me about yourself. People love talking about themselves. I want them to talk so I can feel them out as people, and so they can like me as a person. Because at the end of the day, if they like me, they want to keep me around. That's enough to get past, hopefully, the first vote. From that point, then you can see where the lines are drawn. Now, she may be right about the first vote. Maybe. But sometimes being friendly isn't enough. All sorts of things can lead up to being that initial target, including the stuff you already brought up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she says she won't look threatening. She says she has a high Survivor IQ. But those are all things describing what she thinks of herself.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she said she wanted to play as Natalie White. Natalie White is great if there's a Russell there.
Right.
If there's no Russell, and I didn't see a Russell here anyway.
No, I didn't either. No.
Then that's not necessarily the winning game plan. And she said, I feel like I'm either first out or I'm winning. I don't think I'm win. I don't think she's winning.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be an interesting one. I had very, very few of the players did I have kind of a real strong reaction about, and I had a very strong reaction about her just because of everything we've already talked about. I mean, I'm sure she's a wonderful individual, and I'm sure she's experienced things in her life that I will never experience, and I can be jealous about those things for sure. But at the same time, if you're putting yourself into a game, there are certain moments of reflection you have to have about yourself going into that game. And she's had those moments of reflection, but then she adds to it, I don't care.
Yeah.
You have to care.
Kind of like a reflection in a funhouse mirror.
Right. You definitely have to care, and you need to recognize that about yourself and put that in check, because if you know that they're going to see it, they're going to see it, especially if you don't care.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that takes us to a summary of sorts from Love You. I have worries about several people in terms of being potentially the first one out.
It's all my papers.
Yes. For me, it comes down to Heather or Sydney being voted out first.
Yes, I completely agree with that assessment.
Yeah. Given the age groupings, I'm going to say Heather will unfortunately probably be the tribe's first fruit, but I also won't be surprised if it's Sydney.
Well, and here's the thing, and this is what I'm hoping for Heather happens, that she has an opportunity to find her place. And I think her place is going to be really showing her worth around camp. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe she really will like kill it in the challenge, and that won't even be a question. So I think just looking at some of the other personalities, I mean, you've got Danny, who definitely appreciates people that work really hard. You've got Nasir, who certainly appreciates hard work because of everything that he's come from. And I think Heather is going to fit very well with those types of personalities. Yeah. And then you have Sydney, who, not that she doesn't work hard, but it's been a little bit easier for Sydney. And so I think she's going to present in a different fashion than someone like Heather would. And so who knows if they're going to end up kind of reading each other in that fashion. Mm-hmm. But if Heather gets an opportunity to prove her worth, I think that will go very far for her. But she has to have that. She has to have that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We can move on to the next tribe, which I'm guessing is pronounced Ua.
Ua.
Ua. And we start with Brad Reese, who is a 50-year-old rancher from Wyoming. He thinks he'll play like Boston Rob. I just wanted to let that sit for a second there. Because, you know, as Mike Bloom mentioned in the player intro podcast, I find that very unlikely based on the rest of his interview.
Listen, I'm going to cut you off for just 2 seconds because I have to. Because if you haven't listened to the interviews, you probably should. But there was one incredible moment in his where he was asked what his like favorite Survivor moment was. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't come up with one. He kind of like gave an answer like, well, all of this. It was like it took him a long time, and then he was finally like, well, I like all of this one particular thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh no. I mean, I know he acknowledges that he's late to the Survivor watching game, if you will, but yeah, you're not a Boston Rob if you can't even come up with one great moment.
I mean, he said, you know, in other things in his interview, he said the social game is more important than strategy, which definitely does not go in the Boston Rob playbook. Mm-mm. I also don't think it's wise to play like Boston Rob unless he plans on being brought back 4 times.
Right.
You know, but he also says that he can win trust with people and build multi-dimensional alliances. Now, it's a good sign that he's thinking that way. What's not a good sign is him thinking that Ozzy is the best player to never win.
Yeah.
Because he's not even on the list anywhere. I mean, I guess he's technically somewhere because he hasn't won. But, you know, Ozzy certainly never made multi-dimensional alliances. He was lucky if he made one-dimensional alliances. Mm-hmm. Just take a look in the rules for my whole litany on Ozzy. And I've discussed it on previous podcasts. You know, now, based on the beginning of his RHAP interview, it appears he's an RHAP listener. So if you're listening now, sorry, wrong about Ozzy. Go back and, you know, take a look and explain why. I'm not going to do it again here. But
I think that is because that was one of the first seasons that he watched. And I do think that there is a definite effect that happens to people who start watching Survivor late, and then sometimes they work their way backwards. And I feel like that can kind of warp your sense of the game because you're it's like you're being thrust into the middle of a board game instead of starting at the beginning. All of a sudden you get to just jump in the middle and then figure out the rest of it. You're missing all of what happened at the beginning to truly understand where the game has come. And I do think that there is a lot to be said about people that watch Survivor in that fashion. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, not everybody, if you're 20 years old, you clearly weren't watching Richard Hatch win, but there's a lot to be learned, right? I mean, the rules of Survivor, you have changed and updated throughout the years because the game has changed throughout the years. And so if you are starting with a season where Ozzy is playing, you can be starstruck and just think, my God, look at this man and all of the things that he can accomplish and the way that he wins challenges and how he gets fish. And it can be really kind of all consuming. And to then try to go back in time and watch the earlier versions of Survivor, you might be at a loss because you're so caught up in what you've just seen. And they're different games now. They're completely different games. And so I do think that if he's caught up in that idea of Ozzy, of course he's going to look at Ozzy and go, well, that guy should have won. Well, there's a lot to Survivor, and there's a lot that has been created outside of Ozzy, and there's been a lot of great players that have won that you should probably have a good understanding about as well. So I do think that for him, that's probably why he looks at Ozzy in the way that he does.
Yeah. I mean, one of Brad's hobbies is fishing. You know, and it's that type of situation. Now, if Jeff Probst's promises, that's hard to say, of a food shortage come true, then fishing could be a valuable skill if he's there long enough to show it.
Right.
But as we've already talked about, being the oldest member on a small tribe is dangerous. And now he also has Jeannie, who we'll talk about in a minute, in his age range that may help him out. But on the other side, he described himself as a big, tall guy with a lot of curly hair. Quote, I kind of think they'll view me as a little bit of a wild man. Now, that's, you don't want to be seen as the wild man either.
Right.
And going back to other things not helping him, he said people will probably underestimate his social game. This, again, comes back to what I was talking about earlier. There are certain things you don't want to be underestimated for. If people early on underestimate your social game, that means you're not doing a very good job of it.
Right.
And he thinks once the others get to know him, they'll go, whoa, this guy's a bit deeper. There are a little more layers to the onion than I first thought. But that assumes that he'll get the chance to show them that.
Right.
So,
yeah, and the fishing too, I don't know if the fact that you can fish in Wyoming means you can fish in Fiji.
Pretty much the same thing.
Totally.
So yeah, I have to say, I know he's only the first person on this tribe so far that we're talked about, but the wild man who is older and won't appear to have a good social game screams first boot to me.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, and did he, I have to check my notes here. Never mind.
Okay.
Excuse me while I cough.
All right.
We're good.
I
was getting worked up for a second. I didn't need to.
All right.
Moving on.
Work yourself up into Jeannie here.
Hang on. I'm going to talk about her in a second.
You dream of
Jeannie? Hang on 2 seconds here.
Uh-oh. Microphone.
Okay. Good? Yeah, you can hear me all right? All right.
Oh, yeah, we're good.
All right. So next we have Jeannie Chen, who is 46 years old, and she is pumped to be on Survivor. She is, let me see. Oh, she's in customer service. I have this somewhere.
She's a grocery clerk.
I knew that it was something like that. So it's called Jeannie the Machini because she's like the Terminator at work, she said. She's a Suri fan, which I love, obviously, because that's just wonderful. Her pet peeves are people who do not wear masks correctly. And I think that shows where she works as well, because she's dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. She is funny, kind, sensible, and she is going to respectfully blindside people in the game. Now, her biggest claim is that everybody is going to like her, and that's why she's going to do so well in this game. She is convinced that Even though it sounds conceited, it is true that people adore her when they meet her. They just do. And she thinks that that's going to really help her socially. Now, I'm hoping that that's the case. But usually when people say that about themselves, like people just adore me, there's a little bit more when you like see that person. And we already talked about Desean, and I immediately kind of felt it with Desean that like this guy's just likable. And I didn't necessarily feel that with Jeannie. I didn't feel like she was unlikable, but I don't know if she's like, maybe she's just because she's on TV being interviewed, like she's holding herself back a little bit. Trust me, I know how that is because I've done the same thing.
Yes.
So I am hoping that she just kind of blossoms and becomes what she's on paper claiming to be, because I think she will be super fun if that's what we see with Jeannie, because we haven't even said it yet, but I will. There is a whole lot of like super like brainiacs and like the egos that I think are going to exist on this particular season of Survivor is kind of overwhelming. And she feels like kind of just like a normal, like hard worker person who loves what she does, loves herself. And I like, she was kind of like a breath of fresh air, just in comparison to some of the things I was reading about people. I'm like, wow, there was a whole lot of that. So
yeah,
I'm hoping that that she's able to put that out there into the universe of Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, I like what I see of her personality, but I do worry for her chances in the game. I mean, her answer to who she would play most like is she doesn't believe in playing like any previous contestant. Well, that's not really the question.
Right.
It's who do you play most like?
Mm-hmm.
And so, or who will you? In her parade interview, she compared herself to Cirie, just more athletic. So then why not cite Cirie in your question?
Right.
Yeah. And in her, this is just kind of funny more than anything, in her RHAP interview, she talked about how Cirie on the balance beam touched her so much. Well, the thing is, I think
it annoyed everybody else.
Well, I can't remember if you were with me at this moment or not, but I've talked to Cirie about that moment at an RHAP gathering. Cirie hated that.
I'm sure she did.
She hated it.
Listen, there are moments in Survivor that you don't want to have everybody staring at you and watching you like fail over and over again. Move on. Like, let this poor woman just not be able to cross the balance beam and be done with it.
Yeah, she didn't see it as a growth or a triumph. She was like, "Oh, can we move on, please? Can we get over this?"
I don't want to do this.
But yeah, I mean, it's good that Jeannie plans to have many alliances so that she has options per the third rule. And, the problem is there's little hint as to how she would get those alliances other than, like you said, being likable.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's all it'll take because she does have this instant charm, just like me. But
of course.
Yeah. But, I'm just worried that she could be a very early boot, maybe even first off ahead of Brad, if she doesn't immediately show her value and make early alliances, because being charming probably isn't going to be enough.
No, and that's my concern that I have for her as well. Just kind of looking at the tribe and what the other options are. If we go back to the idea that they're going to have an immediate tribal council first day, and who knows, maybe they'll even have two because you have 3 tribes, and they could very well say 2 of the tribes are going to tribal council tonight.
I mean, it is a 2-hour premiere.
Yeah. So they're going to have to make quick decisions. And again, how are people going to relate? And if she is immediately charming and everybody likes her, great. But if she's not able to hold her own in the challenge, and that's something that might be an issue. So I hope that she's able to excel in what she believes is going to be her biggest strength. But again, if you only have a very brief moment to do that, and I know that some people might say, well, Jessica, I mean, if you have an entire day to spend with you, no, trust me, when you're out there, you do not have enough time to spend with every person to make every moment matter. And when you are limited to basically a day, if that's what it's going to boil down to, you're going to be in so much trouble. If you don't shine in that particular challenge, you are immediately going to be on the block. Immediately. Mm-hmm. That's just going to happen because the quick decisions are going to need to be made. So I'm hoping that she has a chance, but it might not work out.
Yeah. All right. We move on to, I knew how to pronounce his first name and I apologize. I think it's Jairus Robinson.
I think it's Jairus.
Jairus?
But he goes by
Okay.
JD.
Goes by JD, that I can pronounce. And I apologize.
You can say letters.
Yes.
Congratulations.
I apologize to him. I had listened to try and, to make sure I pronounced his name right. And here in the moment, I absolutely, it fell out of my brain.
This is what happens.
Yeah. He's a 20-year-old college student from Oklahoma City. He is younger than Survivor. That is a hard concept for me to fathom.
I know. I'm so old.
Yeah. Now, even as someone so young, he has a lot of things going for him. He listens to RHAP, obviously a big plus. He's a track champion, so we can expect him to do well in certain parts of challenges. He's smart. He's a practice speaker. He says he's able to get along with anyone. And he really seems humble and down to earth. He may be the first person ever to say he wants to play in part like Fabio.
Right.
I do understand what he's saying in terms of lowering his threat level. But I'm a little worried about his plan for when he hits the beach, which is to work hard on the shelter and not go heavily on the strategy. He doesn't want to approach people for alliances, but rather wants to really get to know people.
Yeah. But you know what? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just to say, Rule 1 says you need to start making alliances from day one right away. There isn't time to get to know people that well because you could be gone. You could always change it up later. And this goes back to the same things you've been saying. If they are on a shortened time frame, he is not going to have that chance. So hopefully he will be flexible enough to realize that.
Well, I feel like he's having a very similar approach that we just talked about with Jeannie, because he says that he was very popular in high school, and I have the it factor that some people just have.
Very popular in high school, last year.
Right. It just happened. But again, it's like this, everyone has kind of a sense of themselves, right? Now, Survivor is not high school. It is not. There are a lot of things very similar to high school, but it is not high school. And so I don't know if you can just kind of rely on your swagger and that it factor to really make people connect with you when you're out in the island. I mean, clearly he's a very impressive individual. And there's a lot of things about him that are really kind of like, like they kind of get you. I mean, the kids he works with are his heroes, and he's got 8 siblings, and his favorite, his thing he's going to hold with him is the hugs that he got from all of them before he left. I mean, all of that is very much, tugging at the heartstrings. And so he's probably going to be a likable guy. But again, is he going to have an opportunity to let that shine? But maybe he'll excel in the challenge. And then again, he's not going to have to worry about it. But, that was something that I thought was interesting. I mean, he says he's going to be a calculating strategist. So I guess we'll see if he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I do think because of his athletic ability, he'll probably be okay in the first vote at the very least.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So, and then from there, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he's just someone, and here's the thing. I think if he really does have that it factor and he has that time to charm people, then I think he's going to be in a great place because he is an enjoyable person to listen to, and he is very sure of himself, but it's not like, I believe you might have even said this. It's not like cocky or anything. Like he just seems to be like someone who understands himself, but can also present himself in a good way as well. All right. Our next survivor is Ricard Foyer. And I think that's how you say his last name. Sorry, Ricard.
Yes, you nailed
nice.
It.
I nailed it.
As far as I know, you did.
All right, good. So he is 31 years old and describes himself as, I'm funny, I'm pretty, and I'm perceptive. And so I thought that was quite fun that he was very mindful of himself. Also, his pet peeves are being asked a question and your answers being ignored. So I think that's really nice because I do think that shows you his ability, that communication is something he's very interested in. So let's see. He wants to be strong, but not too strong. He's going to be beast mode after the merge. But what I find to be the most fascinating component of Ricard is his hearing. He's hard of hearing. And so because of that, he has had the ability, or he's needed to learn how to read lips and also body language, especially because he's a flight attendant and he does a lot of interacting with people every single day. And so I think for this game, that's going to be phenomenal. I was reading that and thinking to myself, how awesome would it be that you could like spy on people from afar if you could read their lips? And that's something he does all the time. So I do think that that's going to be
reading
a very
lips, not the spying on people, as far as we know.
right, exactly. So I think that that's going to be a very interesting thing to see. And I have to give this guy props. Every picture I see of him, wow. I mean, he is just serving it. I mean, he is fierce looking. In all of the previews I've seen, I am loving the way that he presents himself, and he just looks like a badass. So I am very excited for Ricard. I think that we are going to see a lot of great things with his gameplay because he definitely seems to have really thought it through. And he also has, I think, given up a lot of his own life to go and play Survivor, which I think also shows how significant and important this game is, not only to himself, but his family, because he's leaving behind a baby that's not even born yet.
Yeah.
So I was just like really crazy that he's going to come home and then a new baby is going to be arriving in like a week. So impressive.
Yeah. Now, he seems like the kind of person who is going to be a blast both to watch and for his tribe mates.
Yes.
Although he said he thinks he'll struggle because he's really funny. And he even wrote himself a letter before coming that said, do not make too many jokes. Do not make too many jokes. Do not make too many jokes, which honestly sounds like something my kids would tell me. Now, he said he wants to be liked, but not too much, not stand out, stay under the radar, and then pop out and show his physicality such that people were wondering where he was. And it's a good plan. It'll be difficult to put into action.
Yeah.
One thing that I really liked, and I know Mike and Rob already discussed this, but it struck me, again, before even that, he said, the way I think I'll be perceived by the castaways has changed now that I see the cast. Even though we haven't interacted with one another, I kind of assumed I would either be the one Hispanic guy, the one gay guy, or just one of the stronger folks. Now I'm seeing with how diverse the cast is, that they might just see me for me. And that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is really a big deal in terms of the change in casting. He's not the lone representative of some particular group. He's not oh, you're the one gay guy we have to drop in here, and that just gives him a better chance overall. Like he said, they can see him for him.
Right. And I will say too, his plan, I don't think is going to work as far as the desire to hold back in the challenges and then after the merge go full beast mode. I think because you are starting on a tribe. Now, when he said those words, he didn't know that he was in a tribe of 6. So I am hoping that the people who were thinking that way rethink it once they say, oh, wait a second, I'm on a tribe of 6. You have to be full beast mode immediately because there's only 6 of you. And it is such a small amount of people to have to vote someone out. And so you don't want to be the person who is floundering in challenges. You want to be the person who they're like, no, is going to be awesome in challenges. So I hope once that 6 happens that he reworks that in his mind.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Sarah Wilson, a 24-year-old healthcare consultant from Boston who went to MIT. She looks to be, smart young woman. She talked about solving engineering problems. She plays poker. And on top of it, she was a long-distance swimmer. And she's seen each season 3 or 4 times. So, don't you complain to her. Don't us complain to her about what we've done. She's got us beat.
I know, right? She does too.
Now, she said she wants to align with someone who people don't expect her to align with. And I like that insight. Like, well, if 2 young women get together, people are going to assume, oh, those 2 are together. But like if the young woman and the older guy get together, well, that might not be as, expected.
Right.
Kind of a Stephen and JT situation. From the beginning, she plans to blend in, lie low, but she also wants to make big moves, which, as listeners know, is a big red flag for me.
Well, and here's the thing that I will say about Miss Wilson. She strikes me as someone who understands herself. Like, she thinks she's going to have everything it takes. Like, she was very clear, like, there has never been a survivor like me. But this is someone who, I'm glad you mentioned MIT and that she solved equations. She went into MIT and was presented with a problem that hasn't been, people have literally been working on it for years and have not been able to solve it. And we're talking professors. Like, I'm not just talking just like students. And she walked in and she solved it like her first year. Who is this person? You know what I mean? Like, and now they use that in like cancer research. Like, so she clearly has to have she's clearly very smart, but I think that's so impressive that she was able to walk into something like that, which is probably a lot of pressure, and then just be like, I'm going to drop the mic and show you all how it's done. So I feel like she presents herself in a manner that is not that person. When I first read about her, when I first started to watch her videos, I was kind of like, But then, like, the more I thought about it and the more I saw, I was like, it's kind of fascinating that she can have all of that. And I think she's going to be able to hide it very well because she doesn't present in that fashion at all. And I don't know if just because she recognizes it about herself or if that's just the way that she is. So I think it's going to be an interesting thing to watch kind of blossom when she's out there on the island.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, she also says, strategy is going to be more important to her game, while also saying you need to connect with people on a human level to win. All those are true. Rob said he was medium high on her. And I'm about the same place, but maybe closer to medium. But then again, I'm the guy who goes into the, when I order a steak, I'm like the guy who says, well, between medium and medium well, leaning towards the medium, and they just look at me and they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah,
Just
they're
pick
annoyed
something,
with you.
So, but that's where I'm going here, between medium and medium high, leaning toward the medium. That's where I am with her.
I was leaning towards rare at the beginning, but then I'm telling you, the more that I like read about her and the more she kind of like, listen, that was the analogy we were going with, right?
Yeah, no, I liked it.
And the more that it like kind of just sat in my brain and I just kind of thought about her, I'm like, God, she's like, she's more impressive the more I think about it and the more that I've listened to and read. So I'm more of a well done at this point. Okay.
Wow.
We'll go to a well done.
Well, we'll see if we tell her that at the end.
Yes. All right. So next up we have Chantel Smith.
How come you get people with last names of Smith and I get the ones that
I think was I the one that came up with the order? I don't know.
Oh,
Crazy.
you were, weren't you?
There was a reason for it, and you will figure it out once we get there. You'll know exactly. You already know. You'll know exactly.
I know.
I was thinking.
Yes.
I was thinking. I was planning. I was strategizing.
Scheming and plotting, yes.
That's right. All right. So I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Shan. We'll talk about you now. She is 34 years old. She's actually from Toronto. Her mother is her hero. I have to mention that again because I do really appreciate that. Now, she wants to offer, here's that word again, authentic relationships. So we do have another person utilizing that term. But she did say, because she's a pastor, I am the mafia pastor. I will pray for you and walk you out the door at the same time. And I loved that. I think it's great because I do think that there's this preconceived notion of people that play Survivor that seem to have very strong religious beliefs. And sometimes that kind of, it overshadows their ability to play this game because people seem to think that that's what they're going to base everything on. I don't get that sense from her at all. I think that she's going to be able to present a very nice balance to that. It is going to be part of her game because she did say that she wants the greatest God to be with her, but she also has plans to play this game, which I just think is great. And her desire to play the game stems from a lot of, I think, really hard things that she has in her background and her life and how significant Survivor became. And she almost sees Jeff Probst as a parent figure. So it's all like kind of it's a great backstory. And she's been able to turn herself into what she has become. And I really think that she's going to be great. I mean, she talks about wanting to identify as Kim Spradlin, but that her favorite player is Sandra. She talks about Davy as well. And there's a lot of great players that she references that she wants to include in her gameplay. And she loves the strategic but fun-loving component of how they played the game. So I think overall, I think she's going to do very well. But I also just hope that people don't see her as a threat, because I think she's going to have that ability to really present herself as a strong individual because of her profession and because of what she's been through. And I don't think she's going to take anything from anyone. And so I'm hoping that she's able to find a good balance and find some great people to work with. And I have a sneaking suspicion who she's going to be working with. But that's
okay. Yeah, I mean, her game plan when she hits the beach is to start getting to know people and get connected to everybody, but not be seen connecting to everybody. And as soon as I read that, I was like, wow, that's going to be hard. And then I read the rest of her sentence where she said, which is going to be hard. So, good for her for recognizing that. She also wants to immediately look for landmarks that could help in idol searches, which is good planning. She's not going to go around, running around looking right away, but we know there are certain things. Oh, boy, that's an odd looking tree over there. That might come up at some point, And so she wants to get a read on people, but also on kind of the area. And yeah, it looks like even as a pastor, she's willing to set honesty aside. And she's, going to get blood on her hands, though it's going to be respectful blood. I do worry that if she makes it to the end, and people know she's a pastor and she lies to get there, that it will be held against her in much the same way a mother figure often gets slammed by the jurors.
100% a concern, yes.
But I also worry that it won't come up because I have a feeling she's going pre-merge.
You really think so?
That's where I've got her.
Look at you. I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think there might be a little group that forms on the Ua tribe, and I think she might be part of that little group. However, there's a lot of things that we don't know are going to happen. They might be switching people up.
We're at the summary of the Ua.
Oh, with the group?
Yeah. Who do you think is going to group together?
I think Ricard, Chantel, and Sarah are definitely going to be coming together, and they're probably going to bring in JD. That's my thought, is that those, because I just feel like I don't know. That's my
okay.
That's
all
my
thought. Now, I mentioned as soon as we started discussing it that I most worry about Brad as potentially the first one out. Jeannie could also be at risk for leaving early. It may depend if they lose the first challenge or they get a few more days. If it's the first challenge, I think goodbye Brad. If they have more time, Jeannie could be the one to go.
You know what's interesting too? In my initial which is terrible. I apologize to everyone who is on the season for any judgments that I am passing on anyone.
Because, well, actually, I meant to say that. We might as well do it now because I was going to say it at the beginning, and then I thought, oh, we forgot to say it at the beginning. We'll say it at the end. So instead, we'll say it in the middle.
Right. So I hope everyone's still listening and hasn't turned us off.
Yeah. So if you're a player on the season, we know that we're shooting in the dark here.
Right.
I mean, we've got little flashlights pointing at things. And if we happen to hit a target, we're going to scream, David, you're right. Or, well, I won't say Jessica, you're right. But she will. But, so occasionally we get things right. I would say there are times, that we actually do nail it. And you can figure certain things out. But yes, there will be times when we make absolutely incorrect assumptions about you. Sorry.
Yeah. And listen, I've been there. I know what it feels like to have people talk about you. It can make you giggle. It can make you sad. But just know it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because unfortunately, this is the world that we currently live in where people talk about people who put themselves on television. And I know
what do you mean, unfortunately? That's literally our job.
But hear me out. Hear me out. Now, I'm someone who, like I said, I've experienced this. And so I know what it feels like. But I also know that when you make a decision to say, I'm going to be on a reality TV show, you have to have a very honest conversation with yourself about the fact that people are going to talk about you and that people are going to judge you. These people don't know you. And it's just as David has just said, we're looking at some videos, reading some things on paper and trying to figure things out. But we are still huge fans of you for putting yourselves out there and letting us do this. So I think it's fantastic that we have an opportunity to learn about such incredible people, because I will say every time there's a new cast of Survivor, I am blown away by the people that exist in this world, and that these people have come together and now get to experience this opportunity. But it really is just an impressive group of people who clearly CBS saw something in and wanted to put them into the world so we could all see those same things. So thank you for giving us a chance to do that. And don't take any of this to heart. And if you have an issue, get in touch with us, talk to us, because we love to talk these things through. So we'll leave it at that. There we go.
All right.
Next.
So we can move on to Yase. And the first person on Yase, and
it's not Yace.
I'm guessing it's Yase, not Ya. Is David Voce, a 34-year-old neurosurgeon who is currently in Chicago. Now, I have heard he will be going by his last name, so we won't be able to say, David, you're right. We'll have to say, Voce, you're right.
I just messed up all of my papers.
Oh, no. It's almost like you shouldn't use papers.
I will always use paper.
I will always wave my finger in your face, and I will always use paper.
Listen.
So, all right. So I think that, well, not I think, he has proven he is clearly the smartest of all the players.
Oh, my word.
And I say this because he name dropped me and complimented me at least 3 or 4 times in his pregame interviews.
Not that he's a neurosurgeon or anything.
No,
that has nothing to do with it.
He's incredibly high intelligent. And by the way, he mentioned Rob too, but you know, that's okay. In Parade, he talked about how, and also on the RHAP interview, he talked about how mentorship in college created his love for the scientific method, which, by the way, another reason I'm rooting for him. He continued his mentorship in medical school, creating his admiration for neurosurgery, and mentorship in neurosurgery training is how he learned surgical techniques and the proper management of patients. This translates to Survivor because he had mentors for the game as well, in the form of me and Rob. Who knew?
Listen.
Yeah, he said, it's listening to these greats who have been looking at the game for the past 20 years and learning, sitting under their instruction to understand how I need to play this game. So let me just let me just add to this here.
I also brought a lot of podcasts from Rob Has a Podcast, David Bloomberg's Why Blank Lost, and also David Bloomberg's Rules on How to Win Survivor. How much Rob Sesternino and David Bloomberg have been my mentors in preparing for this game. I want to lower my threat level.
Listen.
So hopefully, you know, I don't have a soundboard, so hopefully people could actually hear that. But that was, you know, David Voce being the smartest person on the cast.
David, do me a favor, and not you, David Bloomberg. David Voce. If you're listening, which I'm sure you are because you love David Bloomberg, clearly, I would like you to DM me your address and I will send you a poster so you can have the David Bloomberg.
How do you know he doesn't already have one?
Because listen, I mail them all out.
Well, that's a good point. You're the shipping department.
And I can't, it's one of those things that like maybe I don't recall it, but he could have one. So you know what, David, get in touch with me. Let me know. And if not, you will have one. I will send one to you. And it will be a thank you for giving this guy over here. Right. Yes. Props. Because I agree. I do agree. He is David Bloomberg knows what he's talking about. So I'm glad that David Voce gave you some kind words and talked about you. And I'm sure you were doing lots of somersaults, as Rob mentioned.
Yes, I was. Now, obviously, I think that he has done some of the best possible preparation. But as Rob has already pointed out, there's a difference between knowing what to do and being able to put it in action.
Right.
We've seen it before when we've had players go in saying they studied up when, and then when they got there, they, for one reason or another, they couldn't quite pull the trigger. For example, some have gone in absolutely intending to follow Rule 4, not allowing their emotions to control them. But then they get there, they start to make friends, and they realize it's not as easy to treat them as pawns.
Right.
Or the reverse, where it's perfectly easy to treat them as pawns, and they forget to treat them as actual people, too. Now, I think that Voce is at least partially prepared for the Rule 4 situation because he described extensively in his parade interview how he already has to separate his emotions as a doctor who deals with both complicated surgeries and deadly situations, along with the families of patients. He said it gives him a great leg up in blocking his emotions, both in dealing with other people and in situations that others would find extremely difficult beyond even what we might see on Survivor, noting in the middle of the night, when you are 20 hours into an operation, you're hungry, you haven't peed, you're sick, your mind has to be completely focused, and you have to be able to suppress these emotions. On the flip side, he noted that when he leaves a situation like that, he has to turn on his empathetic side to talk to the family. Quote, being able to remove emotion from the decision-making process so that you make logical, precise decisions while still implementing emotion in the core foundation of relationship building with your tribe mates. He also then noted that when you're dealing with serious diseases, you have to be able to communicate, bond, establish trust, and convey confidence to people in a very brief amount of time. This could translate to the game. And I would just add that he also needs to do it without coming off arrogant, like, well, some surgeons do. I mean, there's a stereotype, a cliche of a surgeon who is someone who wants to go in there and just do the cutting and be done. There's even a show on Apple TV Plus called Schmigadoon. And one of the characters there is like, I became a surgeon so I could help people without having to deal with them, or words to that effect.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But he seems to have taken that into account, saying he's friends with everyone from the doctors to the janitors, because a title doesn't make you better as a person. Quote, you have to be human. You have to connect with people. And so, Rule 5 discusses pretending to be nice. There are several examples within it that talk about being nice to people's faces, but saying what you really think in private. And we hinted at this earlier. Voce told Mike Bloom, I think people will perceive me as someone that just tells it as it is. I am very blunt. The key here, though, is that I will keep my bluntness to confessionals. That bluntness will not translate into my gameplay. And so he also practically cited to rule number 1 in talking about the beginning of the game.
Should I just put my head down and take a little nap?
Yeah, really. Sorry. You could jump in anytime, but
it's fine. You are living your best life right now because someone talked about you so beautifully in their pre-Survivor interviews.
We needed him to talk about me in the game too. That's what but
that'll be interesting. But I don't think he signed a non-disclosure agreement about you.
I don't need one. He can disclose all he wants. But he said early on from day 1, from second 1, you have to build relationships. You have to find a common thread. That's, like I said, practically a quote from Rule 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
he has them tattooed on his arm.
That's right. We don't sell those, by the way. You cannot get that at the RHAP shop. Maybe temporary tattoos. That would be
That's a good idea. I like that. Mm-hmm.
Another place we can see our influence on him is not from me, but from you. Because of the question of what he desires in an alliance partner, he wants Ken.
No, he's the one who gave Ken a little bit of shit, excuse my language, but...
No. He disagrees with the way Ken played.
Right. But he understands that.
But he wants Ken
Yeah.
because Ken will be loyal and not backstab him.
Yeah.
Which is what you want in an alliance partner. But of course, he won't be loyal. He just wants to be the one doing the backstabbing, not the one getting backstabbed.
I do appreciate that he recognized the same thing in Ken, but I also have, like, when you start to say some things about Ken, I get a little, protective of Ken. But yes, he did. He absolutely saw in Ken what Ken put out into the universe, and that was his loyalty, and that was something that we all saw, and that was something that I knew this guy's going to have my back. So yes, I do appreciate that about David Voce.
Yeah. Now he picked some big names as former players he'd be like, from Russell to Todd, noting the pluses and minuses. He even says his final tribal council performance would rival Todd's. I hope we get to see him do it. I want to see that. I mean, for multiple reasons, obviously.
Obviously.
But, I really think he's an all or nothing type of guy. Either he is going to get voted out very early because people see through the charm,
right?
Or he's going to make it a long way.
Here's my concern is exactly that. I feel like he is someone who has prepped so much, and I truly appreciate the fact that he has, and that he's recognized those mentors as he referenced. But it's one of those interesting situations where you have someone who is clearly incredibly smart and has taken on a profession that is incredibly difficult, and one that requires a certain type of stamina and a certain type of person to not only accomplish, but to excel at. And it's not, that's why, the joke is about brain surgery, and it's not like it's brain surgery, right? Well, that's what this guy does. So to me, my biggest concern for him is that even though he sees himself as able to relate to individuals that just 20 hours of surgery, and then he has to go and he has to deal with the family and talk to the family about what just transpired, and that in his view, he feels like he's very good at that, and he probably is. But he is also, because he has learned to control his emotions, I'm concerned he's going to come across as robotic, and that he isn't going to be able to really connect with people on a personal level, because the connections that he's making right now are very specific, and they're very structured, and there's a reason for it, and it all kind of comes full circle. It's so to me, my concern is that his profession is going to cause him to act in a way that ends up coming across as robotic, even though he thinks that it's going to come across as personal. It's a different situation. You're not dealing with the family member who is grieving and who just lost their loved one, and you have to be the doctor that is strong and can come in and talk to them. You're dealing with someone who you're competing against for $1 million, and they're not going to care about your bedside manner. They're going to care about who you are as a person. And if he's not able to show himself in that light, he's going to struggle with it. And so that was my concern for him. And maybe he'll be great at it, but I didn't feel the connection from him in his videos that I felt like with other people that I watched their videos. And so I'm hoping he can find that connection, and that he can kind of turn off that I'm super smart part of his brain. But as I already said, there's a lot of super smart people on this season. So maybe that will be to his benefit, because there's a lot of super smart people that he's going to be competing with, and maybe there'll be a connection there. But it will be an interesting one to watch play out, because I do think that it could go either way.
Yeah. The only other thing I have to say about him is, since he mentioned 20-hour surgeries, it'll be interesting to see how he does if he gets to an endurance challenge.
Right? That's a good point.
So, although in those surgeries, he's probably not standing
right,
like
holding
this with a bucket of water
holding his arms with it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, probably not. But you never know. Maybe.
Right.
Crazier things have happened. Yeah. Okay, so I believe next is Eric. So we have Eric Abraham, who is a 51-year-old gentleman from Texas. And Let me see. Do I have what his
cybersecurity analyst?
Cybersecurity. Thank you. Listen,
Yes.
I have notes. This is what happens with paper. There's just
I know
chicken scratch everywhere.
Yeah. Also, just so we know, and you may, there's some indication he may be going by his last name.
Okay. All right.
Another one who might be doing that. So, because they're just all trying to confuse us.
Apparently. So he describes himself as open-minded, optimistic, and confident. I like all of those descriptions of himself. And I really saw that in him in his videos. I do think that he presents himself in that manner. His pet peeves are slothfulness, which I thought was interesting, condescending, and I can't even read my own chicken scratch right now. So we'll just skip past that one. But his hero is his grandfather. So I do love that too. But as far as what he is hoping to achieve in the game, he believes that people will perceive him as a nice guy. So we have another individual who thinks that he will just be seen in a particular way. But in his particular situation, I think he's going to be in a different place than the other two individuals that we've seen, because he's 51 years old. And I do think that he might be in that same camp as Heather that we talked about, being the oldest person. But if he has a chance to present himself, I think he presents himself well. And so I do think that that's something that could probably bode very well for him, that he does plan on working as a team. He wants to focus on strengths. And he believes that if we're winning, we're not voting. And that's an interesting concept, because it's true, right? If you win the immunity challenges, then you don't have to vote anybody out. So he also does recognize that he is 50. And that could be a concern as well. And so it'll be interesting to see how he works out that dynamic too. And if he's able to establish himself, improve himself, as we talked about with Heather, I think that would certainly help him in that regard, because he does have some young people on his tribe as well. And I think that's the biggest strategy that he talked about, is knowing when not to do something.
Yes.
And I think that is something that is definitely worth highlighting, because unfortunately what we see so many times in Survivor is people not reading the room, and they have a knee-jerk reaction to something. And that knee-jerk reaction starts a ripple effect that then changes the whole course or dynamic of the game. And sometimes people, I just use a lot of like those cliche terms. I'm going to say he jumped the shark. Like I just use a lot of those, but that's what happens, is that all of a sudden people are like, oh, now we need to switch things up and do this.
Right.
And it leaves people kind of walking around going, wait, what? That's not the plan. Like that wasn't the plan. What is happening? And so I think that that's great that he is thinking in that manner already, that he wants to not be doing that. So those are my thoughts on
now you
Abraham.
Or Eric. You mentioned him about, wanting to keep the tribe strong and everything else. I worry he may be too challenge focused.
Interesting.
The first thing he wants to do is figure out what each person on his tribe could do in a challenge. He wants to make sure to keep the tribe strong and so on. He said all these different things. He plans to push for tribe strength in the pre-merge. But here's the thing. He's also the oldest person on the tribe.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And he could be judged for that. I mean, he looks like he's got some strength to him. So maybe it won't be a problem, but sometimes, as you and I have discussed, it's the perception that matters.
For sure. Yeah.
And he could be judged for being, that. And we've seen people like that before going, we must be for tribe strength. And everybody else is going, yeah, you're the weakest guy, dude.
Right. Yeah.
So I worry about that. What I do know is, well, one, he has a ton of energy.
He does, yes.
Okay, so that's good. He plans to play like a combination of Richard Hatch and Wendell Holland with a touch of Boston Rob. I don't know how those work together, but I want to see it.
I know, that's a great combo, right?
Yeah. So yeah, those are the things, the only things I would add to what you said.
I'm hoping that we see a lot of him, but I'm also concerned for the same reasons that we talked about. So we'll see. Be very interesting.
Yeah. So we can move on to Evie Jagoda, a 28-year-old PhD student from Arlington, Massachusetts. She's described as being well-studied in both the evolutions of humans and survivor strategy, which are also interests of mine and two things I've written about. You probably all had an inkling about, that second one, but may not have known about the first one.
Crazy.
one thing that will be interesting here is I mentioned how David Voce needs to make sure he doesn't come off as a stereotypical arrogant surgeon. Because if he does, Evie is going to be the main one to react because she cannot stand machismo and mansplaining.
Yes, exactly.
So if he comes off that way, we could be in for quite the battle. And, frankly, from what I've been hearing, I think many people expect him to come out the loser of that battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Nobody should be going around with machismo and mansplaining anyway. So let's just make sure that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
But so hopefully he'll be smart enough. Well, one, that he doesn't do it in normal life, and two, that he doesn't do it on Survivor.
Right.
I do have some concerns about Evie when it comes to the fifth rule, because she talked about her big personality and her political hero. And these are great things in life. But it's possible she could run into problems on Survivor if she talks about them.
Yeah.
Keep your politics to yourself. Now, on the flip side, looking at her tribe, I don't see any obvious dyed-in-the-wool Republicans. So it could be that I'm worrying about nothing.
No, but I do think that someone like Evie she talked a lot about kind of her own growth and how she has realized that being true to herself is what has made her the most happy, right?
Right.
And she's not pretending to be anything she's not, and she's being full on self, which in Survivor could be very, very damning, because there are some times that you do have to hold back certain components of yourself and not say certain things. And my fear for her is because that's so integral to who she is, that she is not going to want to do that. She's not going to be willing to do that, because she is going to have certain beliefs and have certain stances on things, like the issues that she has with men. And I'm hoping that doesn't hurt her in her game, because I do think that she would be a very interesting person to watch go through this game, because she's clearly studied, but she is late to watching Survivor. She started with David versus Goliath. And so she's another one of those very recent, just learning about Survivor and kind of working backwards. And I don't know if that's going to affect her ability to truly understand how the game has evolved.
Although she did listen to the evolution of strategy.
Yes. And so she might realize that this is a much different game now than it was back when Richard Hatch played. But I am hoping that she's able to put some of those things aside. But I fear that she's not going to be able to. I fear that she is going to be so strong in herself and her identity and her sense of self that she is going to be willing to put that at the forefront, as opposed to strategy and the social component of the game.
Okay. Well, I mean, to me, she talked about her plans to get into the right position to win, her strategic and historical knowledge of the game. She expects to be underestimated and well-liked. If she can put all of that into action, I think she may well go far.
Oh, for sure. And that's why, she's someone who fascinates me, because, and obviously this is why she's put on the show, right? Because she's polarizing. You have to have a strong personality to be on Survivor to begin with, because there's so many things that will be thrust upon you. And we have seen people that have extra strong personalities, and it doesn't always work out for them. And I don't know where she's going to fall in that. I mean, she's very proud of where she is and where she's come from. And so I don't see her saying, I'm going to check that at the door, because it is who I am and it's so significant to me. But maybe she will. So I'm very intrigued to see how this is all going to play out. And I do think that the dynamic between she and David will be a fun one to watch for sure. Next, we have Lyanna Wallace. She is a 20-year-old sophomore at Georgetown. Words that she uses to describe herself are adventurous, outspoken, and loving. And I guess outspoken makes sense because she is a spoken word artist. She also wants to lead with authenticity. So there again is that word. And I realized that it was part of the questionnaire as well, that they wanted, how authentic are you going to be? But I find it fascinating that so many people said they want to be truly authentic to who they are. So that was something else about Lyanna that I thought was interesting. She talks also about Suri, who is one of my faves. So I do appreciate that. And, as far as Survivor itself and how she wants to play. She intends to try to just let other people do the talking, and she doesn't want to get messy with it at the beginning. So I think she wants to slow play it, which in this situation, with only being 26 days and only having 6 people on your tribe, I don't think slow play is an option here.
Yeah.
I think that she is going to find herself in a very difficult spot because there are so many strong personalities on her tribe, and I don't see her as having one of those strong personalities. So perhaps this is the perfect strategic move for her, right? Let other people do it and she'll just follow along. And that's kind of what I see for her. I don't see her necessarily taking control, especially since that was her plan going in. I think that there's going to be other people that are going to try to do that, and she might just latch on to them as the game moves forward.
Right. Right. Now, she is the other player this season who's younger than Survivor.
Yes.
She also hails originally from Evanston, Illinois, which is pretty close to where I grew up. So naturally, I'm rooting for her. She wants to play like Tony, which quite a high bar there.
And I don't get that sense from her.
No, I don't either. But she does have a number of experiences that people wouldn't necessarily expect out of someone her age, but I just worry she may be too young.
Right.
You know, she recognizes, you talked about her slow playing it. She recognizes it's a marathon, not a sprint, but this game, somewhere between a marathon and a sprint.
Right.
One.
Yeah, for sure.
And she also recognizes you don't want to be the first one throwing a name around because it can easily bounce back on you. And, you know, so you should try to listen rather than talk. All of that's good. I also like her answer to the question of whether strategy or social game is more important. She said, if I had to choose, I think strategy is the most important. I mean, I've seen players with poor social games get really far because they have a strategic sense. And I think strategy really comes in with the outwit part of the game. If you have a good enough strategy, you can get by if you lack the social game. Whereas the other way around, I think it could be a little more tricky. You're more seen as someone that's just dragged along. And that's fine if you're dragged along, but you're not going to be able to make it to the end and win.
Yeah.
So now there's one thing that Lyanna said in her RHAP interview, that her favorite moment was when Suri, Parvati, and Amanda tricked, quote, some guy into giving up his immunity. Some guy.
We know that guy.
Eric Reichenbach. He made the poster.
Right. Not
That's
some guy.
Rule number 1 on here. Rule number 1 is the Black Widow Brigade.
Yeah.
You know, come on, Lyanna. So, you know, I that moment also incidentally was Sarah's favorite, but I wanted to save mention of it till now because of how Lyanna described it.
Right.
So even with all that, I do think Lyanna will make the merge.
Yeah, but I do think that there's an interesting air that I kind of got from Lyanna, where she's playing with people who I feel like have prepped their entire lives for this, right? Like, I mean, this is what they've dreamed of, they've lived it, they've eaten and breathed it. I mean, this is what they're doing. And that's, you know, and to walk in and not even know Eric's name and that's the moment that, I mean, we already talked about Brad not even having a moment. And then that's the moment that you reference.
Favorite moment.
Right.
Yeah.
It's your favorite moment, but you don't even know who it happened to.
Yeah.
I think that she might find herself being outplayed a little bit by people who might be a little more well-studied or have a better understanding of the game. So I don't know how well it's going to bode for her, but this is such an interesting mix of personalities on this tribe that I'm trying to figure out who's going to end up hanging out with who.
Right.
And it's a difficult one with this tribe for sure.
Yep. Well, we've still got 2 more. So let's move to Tiffany Seeley, a 47-year-old teacher from Plainview, New York. Now, Tiffany got engaged during a Survivor episode, and now I need to know which episode. Tiffany, you're on Twitter. Tell us which episode.
We know there was a spare rib involved.
Yes, that we know. 2 of the words she uses to describe herself are funny and loud, which are also 2 words I would use to describe myself. And almost everyone who knows me would use, well, at least one of those words. She's raised 2 sons. which I've done, though mine are a bit older. And she hates being wrong, which would also describe me if I ever actually were
She's
wrong.
like your twin sister.
She is. She is. Now, an interesting part of her profile is she'd play competitively like Ozzy. I want to know more about that too, because I don't see her climbing up coconut trees or being a challenge beast, but maybe she'll prove me wrong.
Yeah.
I was happy to see her say she wouldn't play so loyal that it would be to the detriment of her own game.
Right.
Tiffany is a teacher whose mom died of cancer, who made the difficult decision to address her own genetic likelihood of cancer ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Within my own family, I can really relate to a lot of that.
Yeah.
Both aspects of it. And then, so yeah, again, maybe she is my twin sister. Who knows? Separated at birth. A lot of the players talked about getting to the beach and observing. But Tiffany specifically said she's talking about doing that for 1 day, not 3 days.
Yeah.
Now, we know this may be compressed, but I think she'll be able to adapt to that. She said she'll avoid being a leader. She'll scope out her opposition. And I'd like this combination of plans. I mean, I still say making agreements right off the bat is best, but this may suit her overall personality better, while still taking into account the idea you have to make alliances early. You can't just sit back.
Right. And she likes Adam a lot.
Yes.
Yay!
Yes.
That's what Sophie vibes coming from the photo, her cast photo. My word. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is what I'm feeling right now. So definitely they did. These are such nice photos. Mine was terrible. Anyway,
your season had the worst photo.
What was happening? What did they were like
Lucy still, I don't know who she pissed off.
It's the worst. Absolutely the worst.
Yeah.
But yes, I do think there's a lot of great things about Tiffany, including the fact that she basically found out the day before she was going out to the game.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
yes.
that.
And Davey, we saw the same thing happen with Davey, where Davey got the phone call and was like, can you get on a plane right away? And she did the same thing. And so I think for her, the benefit that comes from that is you don't spend months in your own head trying to think about how you're going to play this game. You got to figure it out like this when you're like on the plane, getting there. Like, how am I going to do this?
Although they do have 2 weeks of quarantine to deal
right.
with
But it's such a different mindset. I mean, I know for me, the buildup was insane. I know this is off topic, but I was doing so much shopping for clothes in a particular color that like I would go to the mall and people were like, oh, you really like this color, huh? And I'm like, it's like, this is what I'm dealing with right now. And it would have been great to not have to spend all of that time in your own head, kind of thinking about all of the extras, that she didn't have to deal with. I mean, it's like, you want to play, come out and play. And then I think she could probably really have almost tunnel vision to like, okay, now I'm really going to get to focus on what matters, not what color panties I'm going to be wearing out in the island, because I don't have time to go shopping because they told me to fly out tomorrow. So I think that is to her benefit. Listen, it's a thing. It's an absolute thing. So I'm excited to see what happens with Tiffany. And I do think that her being a mother is not going to be an issue for her, as we've seen with some Survivor players, that being that mom. I mean, I was a mom and nobody cared I was a mom, and so I feel like she's probably going to fall into that camp where they're not going to necessarily label her as that, because I don't think she's going to present herself as that. So I'm excited to see what she does. And her being a Survivor fan from the beginning, I think will bode very well for her.
Yeah, I mean, even though she's older, I can see her getting along well with Xander and Lyanna.
Mm-hmm.
I think she'll be able to stick around for a while into the merge. I will say, I think with her backstory, she'll be seen as too big a threat to face at the end. I do not think...
If she shares it.
That's true. I think it'll have to come up. It's too much of her.
Oh, I know. I mean,
I think it'll come up, and I think that I think that'll make her. Some people will consider her to be, because anytime there's anything like that, it's like, oh, got to get rid of that person.
Yeah,
they're too big of a threat.
I don't want to sit next to them. They got a great story. Oh,
right.
yeah.
Even if that wasn't going to come up and it wasn't, going to be an issue, people still think it will. And so I think she'll get cut near the end.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready for our last one here?
Yes, I am.
We're ending on a doozy. Xander Hastings. He is 21 years old, depending on what I think. Yes, 21 on this as well. And he is an app developer. His hobbies are free climbing, road tripping, antique shopping, and graphic design. So there's a hell of a mix for you. Antique shopping, I really got excited about there. He describes himself as independent, resilient, and adventurous. His father is his hero. That's also worth mentioning. Now, his plan for Survivor, he wants to be a good presence, which is interesting because he definitely strikes me as Taylor-esque in just how he presents himself. And Taylor is someone that the more I learned about this individual, the more I felt like he was Taylor, because Taylor was someone who presented in a certain way, that surfer dude kind of person. And then I found out, all of a sudden, he started speaking another language one day. And I was like, what just happened?
Taylor or Jay? I thought
Taylor.
Of him as Jay-like.
No, Taylor did. And I was like, what is happening? Taylor, he started speaking in another language with one of the costume people. I mean, I was floored because it just came out of nowhere. And so I feel like this is who Xander is that all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, and by the way, I scaled Mount Everest and I solved that mathematical equation that nobody has solved for 25 years. And I wrote this incredible app that will cure everybody's issues for the rest of their lives with whatever disease they have by just pricking their finger and putting it's craziness. The more he spoke, the more confused I was. I'm like, oh, I don't even know who this guy is anymore. So yeah, I don't even know what to think about Xander.
Yeah, I mean, he's another Illinois player. He either goes to or went to the University of Chicago, so good. He's another cross country runner.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think we talked about this earlier. It won't.
He runs 13 miles a day.
Yeah, but that won't translate directly because they don't have cross country runs. But overall athleticism,
right, for sure.
He seems extremely bright, but similar to JD, he wants to play like the surfer dude types, to use his strength to get to the merge, making strong bonds, but secretly thinking hyper strategically. It sounds like he's ticking all the boxes, or it could just be a lot of youthful exuberance and optimism.
I'm in my head envisioning this conversation between Xander and David Voce and Sarah. And they're just what is the most difficult thing we can this problem? And they're all standing around this board in Goodwill Hunting, and they're solve this mathematical equation, and they're all able to do it.
That'll be a reward. A visit from Christian with a whiteboard will be the reward.
Yes, blows my mind. So I feel with Xander, if he presents himself as just that likable guy, and I do think that he can, because he does seem to be that way when he's talking, but at the same time, I feel like he's someone who is very proud of all of the things that he's done. And so he is not going to be able to put that away. And that's where I got the Taylor thing, because I spent a lot of time with Taylor, obviously. And Taylor spent a lot of time talking about Taylor. And Taylor would all of a sudden come up with something else that, he was on a sailboat with his dad and they were going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they were making honey with the bees that they actually raised themselves. And then he started speaking another language. And it was all of these things. And I'm like, I don't really know who you are, because none of this seems to jive and make sense. Do you live in your parents' basement, or are you actually out there killing it in the world? And that's kind of how I feel Xander is going to come across. He's going to be very confusing, because I think he's going to be very proud of himself, which he should be, but it might come across as not very acceptable. Right? There might be an issue there.
he said he thinks people will underestimate his intelligence, and I agree, especially if he promotes himself more as the surfer dude.
Right.
But he also loves being a nerd and intellectual. And
Right.
I love that about him. But the question is he going to be able to keep it hidden? Because it's such a big part of himself.
Yeah, I don't think he's
And
going to. I don't think it's going to be possible.
right. Now, he
Not at all.
recognized that strategy has to be key. He says he'll
He
be
and
friends with
David, I'm
everyone.
sorry.
Yeah.
He and David are on the same tribe. It's not
Yeah.
happening. It's not happening.
Yeah, that'll be if those two can get together, they may be able to run the game over.
Yeah.
He says he'll be friends with everyone, but will also know that he's going to have to stab someone in the back while also watching for them to do the same for him. I kind of want Xander and JD to get to the merge together so we can see the battle of the fake surfer dudes. But I don't think he'll stay fake that long. I actually do think he'll make it to the merge at least.
Yeah, but this tribe fascinates me so much in just the personalities, because if you go back to Evie, who doesn't like mansplaining, and now you've got Xander and David that are going to be there, and then you potentially have Eric, who might try to take the dad role. I'm curious if they're all just going to implode on the first day.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. So as far as this tribe, you mentioned Eric. That's who I worry most about being the first one out.
Yeah, I want Eric to not be the first one out, but I do definitely worry about him being the first one out. Listen, and here's the problem with this particular tribe. I think David could be the first one out. If David comes across as that robotic person that is too prepared for this game, like he over prepared, which I love him for doing so, and for reading the rules and for listening to the podcasts, but there is something to be said about holding back that super duper fandom kind of thing. Like Adam was very aware of that. Nobody knew just how much of a fan Adam was, and maybe David will do that. If he doesn't, I feel like he could be in a really tough spot. I'm also worried about Lyanna, but if she is just kind of going to attach herself to someone else's coattails, she'll be fine, but she also might not try to get in there and really own her own game right away. And so if they're just kind of looking for like the first person that's got to go, it might be Lyanna if she's not jumping in and trying to really control her own fate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yep. All right. Time for predictions.
Oh, geez.
There are so many people in this group who could do well. And I think that's a credit to the new casting team, driven, of course, by the effort to include much more diversity. I mean, it kind of shows the point that, people have been trying to make, which is adding more diversity makes for a better cast. I know we haven't seen them play yet, but just based on everybody here, I don't see any duds at all.
No, I don't either.
But all that said, we have to pick a winner.
We don't have to. No, you just make us.
Well, yeah. My pool is Tiffany, Ricard, or of course David Voce. Those are the ones I think are the most likely.
Are we allowed to do a pool?
No. Hold on. That's just
all right. Okay.
So that's who I narrowed it down to. But let's be honest, I don't have a choice here. I have to go with Voce. So let that be a lesson to future players. If you want me to make you my winner pick, talk about me in pregame interviews.
There you go. Done. Yeah. All right. So so I'm going to do my pool since, we're doing a pool.
You can start with that but you still got to pick one.
I am going to pick one. So my pool consists of some of the same that you've just mentioned. Ricard, Sarah, Chantel, Tiffany, and also Desean.
Big pool.
I have a big pool. I have a lot of people in my pool. So that's my pool of people. And my winner pick out of that pool of people is a sleeper. I think it's going to be Sarah. I'm going with Sarah.
Wow. Okay.
And here's the thing. And I know I mentioned this before.
Well, you did say you thought you would be well done, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Because my initial and listen, Sarah, I apologize because the butterfly effect just happened and you're the first one voted
The
out.
reverse butterfly effect.
Because I'm the worst at picking a winner. But what I initially was very concerned for Sarah when I first started to read about her and I was kind of like ho-hum about I'm not really getting a lot from her. But then the more that I looked into her, the more that I was thinking to myself,
The more you stalked her. Yeah.
well, in a season like this, when it's going to move as quickly as we all anticipate it to be moving, that being a sleeper is probably going to be a good thing because they're going to need to have reasons to vote people out in a very quick fashion. We don't have 3 days anymore in between tribal councils to think about it, to debate, to talk. Who do we think? This is going to be one day. I mean, that's really what it's going to boil down to. And so if you have a big personality and if there's anything threatening about you, I think you're gone. And I feel like Sarah is going to be able to maintain that about her. And she's just going to kind of wiggle her way in there because she isn't going to strike people in that way. So that's my thoughts about Sarah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So
there we are.
All right. Well, as we end up here, let me remind everyone that the rules we talked about in kind of comparison to the people there are available as, of course, the poster,
poster,
mug,
shirt.
So for the shirts or mug, go to robhasawebsite.com, click on the merch link and browse through the designs. For the poster, tinyurl.com/DavidRulesPoster2. Also want to encourage people to check out the RHAP patron program at robhasawebsite.com/patron. Beginning of the new Survivor season, perfect time to get in there. Rob has been talking a lot about it, but he's made changes to provide even more rewards to patrons. There will be special patron-only call-in shows for Survivor, similar to the ones he's done for Big Brother. There will be some early podcast releases and more. Just join, find all the benefits. And, there's other call-in shows for Rob. There's Q&A show with Nicole. There's the Facebook groups, which we're both in. So just go to robhasawebsite.com/patron, sign up and say hello when you get to
just
the
do
Facebook
it.
group.
I'm sure David Voce has.
I haven't seen his name.
Interesting.
He may be under an alias. Who knows?
I would love to hear from him. I'm hoping that will happen. So I guess at this point in time, we could say thank you to Scott St. Pierre for all of the incredible work that he does on this podcast, both his editing on the audio and video component. And also thank you to Will from America for the incredible work that he does and the song that he created for us on this podcast. Thank you to David Bloomberg, who you can follow and should follow on Twitter. He's at David Bloomberg, which if I could get my finger pointed in the right direction, he's right over there in the corner at David Bloomberg. I am at Jessica Lewis 89, so you should follow me as well. And now that we are getting into a new Survivor season, there is all the more reason to follow us both on Twitter because we live tweet during the episodes and then there's a lot of follow-up as the week progresses. So you should definitely follow us both. So not only you can see the live tweeting, but also all of the posting of Why Blank Lost after it happens because it will go back to every single week throughout the season.
That's right. And of course, feel free to use our hashtag YXLost. Make sure that you're subscribed to all of the RHAP Survivor podcasts at robhasapodcast.com/survivor or on your favorite podcatcher. We're also on the reality TV RHAP Ups feed, so you can subscribe to that. In both places, you'll find a wide variety of great content. I was on a RHAP Up for the first 4 episodes of Circle Season 3. Everyone should definitely watch or listen to that if you haven't already. And a couple weeks ago, we talked about why Sandra won Pearl Islands. We will be back as early as tomorrow to discuss why Sandra won Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah, and this is why I'm so tired right now.
Yes, we are ending that journey just as the Survivor 41 journey begins.
Yes.
And of course, starting next week, we'll be back on our usual Survivor schedule to be here each week so we can discuss what happened with the person or people voted out. We will see
It's
you
really in a week.
Yeah. Well, first is tomorrow.
Yep.
So we'll see them in a day, and then we'll see them in a week.
It's crazy.
So until then, everyone, remember our predictions, because I'm certain that they will be right.
No, I will be so wrong. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Yes. All right. We'll see everyone very, very soon. Bye.
Bye.